Welcome to the Big Movement Podcast. If you're ready to create results and make huge strides in your business, finances, personal development, and health, then you're in the right place. Pushing past excuses and powering through procrastination can be a challenge alone. Here, you'll get the support, tools, and knowledge you need to get to the level you desire in your business and life. Let's get started with your host, Byron Ingram.
And welcome to another episode of the Big Movement Podcast. And today we have Lauren Erickson. She is a graphic designer who helps entrepreneurs and business owners leverage visual representation of their brands to attract their ideal clients and customers, which ultimately benefits their bottom line. So let's give a warm welcome to Lauren. So Lauren, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, glad to have you here. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so like you said, I'm a graphic designer. I've been doing graphics in a variety of different ways. Since I was young, I taught myself Photoshop in middle school, and so it's been something that I've been able to play with for a long time, and I've just been doing this in a professional setting for about 6 months now, and it's been an amazing process. It's been so fun to experiment and see what different clients are wanting and how to best represent their brands.
Okay. So now, obviously, because you're in the earlier stages of your business, you're going to have a different perspective towards things than, let's say, someone who's more established. They've been around for a little bit of time, because you're going to see things differently.
Absolutely.
It's just something that, if you think about it, people have been in business a long time. They see it a certain way, but when you don't have those, let's say, those habits or the traditional way of doing something, because you grew up in this environment. You've been using Photoshop for a long period of time. So it's like, you know it backwards and forwards. It's kind of like where most people are just reading, they're like using their iPhone. Like, yeah, you've been using Photoshop just as long. So it makes a big difference. So what attracted you to the whole graphic design arena?
You know, the funny thing is, it happened like kind of not even, I wouldn't call it accident, but it was like a very intuitive moment. I was trying to get into this course this one day. It was about 6 months ago, and I needed to come up with $300 to get into this course, and I had nothing. Like, I had $1 or something. I don't know. I was expecting a paycheck the next day, but I needed this $300 that day. And so I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do. I guess I'll put out like a manifestation coaching offer, because I also do some of that. And then my intuition told me, offer graphic design work. I'm like, all right, I don't really do graphic design. Like, I'm good at my own images. And one of my friends asked me to do a PDF for him on trade. And I was like, okay. So I guess I'll put something out, though, like, because my intuition's saying this. So, okay. So I put out this stupid cheap offer. It was 30 hours for $300. Really, really cheap offer. And it was literally taken within 2 minutes. And so, yeah, that kind of set me on this path. It's like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to be a graphic designer now. And it's been so fun.
Oh, that's awesome. And sometimes that's what all it takes is you reach the point, like, I just got to do it. And then you do it. And there's that surprise, like, oh my gosh, someone said yes.
Exactly. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, you don't know exactly what's going to work, and you can be trying to do something. Like, I was trying to get coaching clients for months and months and months, and nothing was happening, nothing was working. And then all of a sudden I ended up actually getting 2 more clients for graphic design that same day. So I ended up getting my first 3 graphic design clients that day, and it was incredible the way it all worked out.
Oh, excellent. That makes a huge difference when you get those wins right away with something versus it going on and on, like, oh my gosh, it's taking forever to get that first win, and there it is.
Exactly. And then when it all comes at once like that, it's like, oh, I guess this is confirmation. This is what I should be doing.
Right. Because in so many cases, when I talk to entrepreneurs, there's a story that's similar to yours in so many ways, that they needed to do something, or like some people it was because they had to change careers, or it was something that would take place, and they just made up that mind that I am going to do this, and then the way actually becomes apparent.
Exactly. It's
very few times someone just does it differently.
Exactly. It's one of those things, you never know how it's going to happen. Like, I would never have predicted that this is how it was going to happen. It's one of those things you kind of just have to, like, go with the flow. You have to see what happens. You have to see what comes up.
Right, exactly. And it's embracing it, because sometimes what we think people want from us is going to be different than what they actually buy from us.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a
Exactly.
lot different, because you think about it, it's all the changes that go on and people want something.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, like it's one of those things. It's like, okay, so you can do all your market research, but once you actually get out there and you're putting offers out there, that's when you see what people are wanting from you.
Right, exactly. And until you put an offer out there, you just don't know, because people get stuck at that notion of, well, I'm not sure what to offer. What if they say no? Well, what if they say yes? You just have to take a chance and put something out there, because that's what's going to make a difference. And because you think about it, you never would have known that people wanted graphic design work from you until you put that initial offer out there, correct?
Exactly. Oh yeah, I would have had no idea. I mean, I did have the slight clue that my friend asked me to make this PDF for him, but otherwise, like, I would have had no idea.
Right. It's really powerful when you just start on that path, like, oh, this makes sense, yay, and then it's growing. So now, once you started your business, and after you got those first few clients, which is really powerful, what were those things you started to do to begin attracting clients and ultimately showing off your work with people? Because obviously, in the graphic design industry, it's visual, so people need to see what you're doing to really know about you.
Absolutely. So the biggest thing I did was posting in Facebook groups. That's something that I've been doing for quite a while, probably about a year now, across the various iterations of my business. And so that was something that kind of stuck with. The thing I should have been doing is Instagram. It's something that I've just started doing recently. And it's like, why didn't I take advantage of that sooner? But anyway, that was the big one, is I was making these, social media post images for myself. I would make a template and I would fill in according to whatever the topic of the post was. And then I could also make other, like, fancy kinds of things. My dad at one point was having me do Photoshop tutorials to help me grow even more, even though I already know Photoshop really well, but just to learn different techniques and stuff. And he was paying me $10 a tutorial, which works out
Nice.
well. Yeah, just as a little incentive, I'm like, okay, Dad, thanks. I appreciate it. I'll take it. And so I was putting those out there too. I was doing some different effects, like, I did neon lights for one. I was doing, like, different kinds of paint effects. I think I did, like, a nail polish one. It was really cool. It was fun to experiment.
Oh, very nice. It's amazing how those incentives come into play. And from posting in the different Facebook groups, how did that start jumpstarting your business? Did you get a lukewarm reception, or was it kind of like, oh my gosh, I need this now, and people just came running at you?
It took some time to grow, but I did get to a point where people would start reaching out to me who I hadn't even known, or it would be somebody that I had known, and all of a sudden they'd be reaching out. They're like, yeah, I am interested in talking with you about, doing a PDF or doing some images or something. Like, oh, that's cool. And it got to a point where I wasn't having to put out as many offers. I mean, obviously it's still a valuable thing to do. But I did get people reaching out, which was really neat.
Right. And that's valuable that, you did it the old-fashioned way, and that was just getting to work. Because so many people, when they're starting a business, they make the mistake thinking that, well, I'm in business. I told 5 people, so everybody should come running to me.
Yep.
No, not really. If it was 5 people times like 1,000 or so, sure, that can have an impact. But just 5 people, no. It'd be no different than like someone spending $2 million or so on a McDonald's franchise, and they just called up all their friends and family and said, hey, come buy a burger from me. They won't be in business very long. You have to go out there and you have to hustle to let people know that you're in business.
Absolutely. It's like that old saying, build it and they'll come. Well, build it and get your name out there over and over and over and over again, and then they'll come.
Right, exactly. There's very few things in today's world that you can just say, build it and they will come. Usually it's the building and it come will apply to brands that are already in existence. Now, granted, like I jokingly like to say, if the building it and they will come would be like, let's just say, as a great example, somewhat like there's a marathon race and you set up like just like a half block away from the finish line, a little smoothie cart. they'll come because they're kind of hungry there. But it's because someone
Exactly.
else brought the audience. It's not like you're just going to sit
Yep.
up on the random
Exactly.
corner. Like, here's this little smoothie cart. No, won't work.
For sure. I mean, if you can take advantage of somebody else's audience, then that's great. But yeah, it's putting yourself out there, and that's often what trips people up. They'll get so self-conscious and be like, I don't want people to see me as I really am, because what if they reject me? But it's like, they can't accept you either.
Exactly. And that in itself is so critical, because people sometimes on social media want to put out a different face to the masses. They want to put out one that's going to like be appeasing to people, like, oh, well, I gotta be like, kiss butt or whatever you want to call it. But in reality, if people see them in person, like, you're not that person. And now because there's a disconnect, they don't want to do business with them.
Exactly.
And it's so important that the way that you show up online is the way that you are in person. I like to. I think the best analogy is like people who use dating sites. The person that might be using a profile picture that's like 20 years old, and they make themselves sound one way, and they show up in person, and the other's like, wait, you're not that person? And they're like they're running for cover. It's no different.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm definitely guilty of using slightly old pictures on dating profiles, so I definitely know how that is. like 2-year-old pictures, not like 20-year-old pictures. I'm only 23, so a 20-year-old picture wouldn't be a good representation for me.
Right, that would be a little awkward. I'd say something like, wait a minute, like this, something's a little odd here.
Exactly. Like, I don't want to be dating a toddler.
Right, like, okay, we're going to go to a juice bar, literally.
Yeah, oh my god. Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, that wouldn't work so well for me. But it's just like that with showing up online. Like, you need to show up authentically. You need to have branding that really represents you, that it feels authentic to you.
Right, exactly. And that's so critical. And that the brand feels authentic. Of course, one of those challenges, especially for new business owners, is getting that right look and feel. So how does somebody go about finding a graphic designer? Because there's so many people out there and everybody has a different vision. Like, you can describe that look and feel of a brand to 5 different designers and all of them come up with something different. So how do you find the right one?
You just talk with them and see what they have in mind. I mean, it's a little tricky because you're often not going to get a prototype without paying for it. But what you can do, as we were talking about, you can go out to Fiverr and get like a bunch of people to come up with some ideas, like some prototypes for you, so you have some cheap options, and then you can pick the one you like and show that to people.
Right, and that's a great way to do it, because you think about the investment people can make in terms of really developing their branding with all the various components, but it's one of those rabbit holes you don't want to go so far down that you get that initial thing back and you don't like it.
Exactly, and it doesn't feel like you, and you've spent all this money and you're like, I don't think that you're the right person for me.
Right, and that happens so often, versus if someone, let's say, found 5 or 6 designers and you say, okay, here's what you're looking for, you describe it to them, and hey, you just want one thing, like you might want the logo, you might want something in particular design with it, just to give you that idea, and then it's a lot easier to go and say, hey, you spent $15, $20 on this, so you found something that you like, then it's easier to go to someone like yourself and say, I want all these things designed, and you know that it's going to cost $700, $800 to do it, and they're okay with it because they're not paying you to figure this out. They know what they want at this point. There's a discovery process.
Exactly. So they already know what they want, and so then it's just actually creating it, and those are the people who are going to have the knowledge and skills to be able to put that into reality the way you want it.
Right, exactly, and that's so critical, because you want to find the right designer, because you want it to be that long-term relationship. Because you think about it in the beginning, it's figuring out what works, what doesn't work, that look and feel. And then once it's there, you don't have to go through the discovery process. You know what someone likes. So if they say, hey, can you make us this? It's going to be easier,
Yes.
right?
Oh, exactly. Like when you have that familiarity with somebody and their brand, it makes things a lot easier. And the other thing that I like to have clients do, and that I've seen other people do before, is they'll have people do like a Pinterest board. And so you'll acquire a bunch of different, like, okay, these are things that I really like that help represent what I have in mind for my brand. And then you have a more clear idea, like, okay, this is how this person wants it to come together. This is what this person is envisioning. Because just words can mean a whole bunch of different things.
Right. Exactly. You want it to have the right look and feel that represents a brand. Otherwise, there's that disconnect, and people need to, look at a brand and go, oh my gosh, that makes total sense. It creates that an emotional connection. It creates familiarity, all that stuff, which is critical.
Oh, absolutely. Because when you have an authentic brand and when you know that you're really doing your brand right, you feel like you know the person so well and it feels genuine and real. It doesn't feel like, oh, this person appears totally polished online, but then when you meet them in person, it's like, wait, you're not like, you're so much more down to earth. You're so much more real. And it's like, you want to come across that way online if that's how you are.
Right, exactly. So now, obviously, to come across online, people need to use the right types of look and feel with images. What are some of those things that people need to consider, like using imagery on Facebook? What should they be doing with their brands versus or let's say it's the things that they should avoid? Like, you do this, you might as well just shoot a torpedo in your brand.
There's a few different things. Like, the way I think about it is you want to have a mix of professional images, like some kind of a headshot or some kind of a professional business image, and it doesn't need to be a super expensive photo shoot. My first images were literally taken against my bedroom wall with a selfie stick duct taped to a fan. I kid you not.
Oh, wow.
Like, yeah, I got creative. I did not want to shell out a ton of money for a tripod, so that's what I did. So have somewhat professional images, and they can be done yourself, especially if you have like an iPhone. I don't know how like Samsung cameras are. iPhone cameras are great. You can do something like that. Then also, I really like to do social media post images because then that gives a really good idea of the rest of your branding, as well as then giving a little bit of extra information into the post. And then, of course, you'll want to have a little bit more of the unpolished side, or a little bit more of the, like, this is what I really do. This is the spontaneous, like, fun, this is my daily life kind of thing. It's often the kind of thing you'll see on Instagram, even though the Instagram images end up always, like, super edited and kind of then polished looking in that regard. Right. But you'll have things like selfies, or you'll have pictures like, oh, this is the coffee I got this morning, or, oh, I made cookies the other day, or, whatever. And those are a really fun snapshot. Those help people to see who you really are and to really connect with you.
Right. It's so critical you have those different components. Now, you mentioned Instagram there, and it's amazing when you look at some of the images that people produce, but then you start thinking about how much time went into that one shot. Is it really necessary for someone, if they're trying to grow a business, to, like, I don't know, spend hours like, no, wait, turn the light this way just to get that one shot, to try to get as many people to look at it as possible?
Oh my gosh, it's just so funny, like, what people do with their images. I'm definitely a little bit of a perfectionist. I have done things before, like really making sure a plate was super clean when I was taking a picture for Instagram. But there's a limit. It's like some amount of realism also makes you kind of approachable or genuine. It makes you likable. It makes you able to connect with those people. And so having the absolute perfect shot is, like, not completely necessary, I would say.
Right. Oh, definitely. You have to have that balance of making it look real, because at the end of the day, it's people want to connect with people, and you don't want it to be just too far gone. Like look, it's I like using the dinner plate example. This is an amazing shot. Like it's the perfect plate and everything else, but 3 feet away from it, it's a sink full of dishes that have little blemishes on them that you couldn't get out.
Yep.
It would be
Yes.
funny for there to be like a little web series that showed the parodies of Instagram photos of all the shots that were not used.
Yeah, exactly. All the dirty dishes, or I've definitely cropped out parts of my room before, like things like that. Not that my room's super messy, because it's not, but it wasn't like the exact shot that I wanted, and so it got edited out, or it got left out of the image when I was taking it.
Right, exactly. And you think about how it just started someone that, let's make it a really good shot, and then it just kept growing. People raised the standards. Like, well, it looks great, but then you have to start, especially for the business owner, weigh that cost benefit. Does it benefit you to really go over the top with all the images to maybe turn a handful more sales versus being real and authentic, and you get 80% of what you would have done versus putting in an extra gazillion hours to make it look perfect?
Exactly. I guess my rule of thumb is if it takes you more than 5 minutes or so to put together an awesome image, then you're probably overdoing it. For Instagram, anyway. For
right.
Yeah, for Instagram or for Facebook, for some of those more snapshot type pictures, if you're doing more than 5 minutes, it's okay, you might be spending a little too much time.
Right. Well, that's just a good rule of thumb, if you think about it, that if you're going to take an image, you want to think well, what do I want this to convey? What should I be doing? And getting the right, okay, let me make sure the lighting's good here, this, okay, done. That should be about it versus, wait, my color, it's not exactly parallel or with this. Really? It's the moment you step outside when it's windy, it's just kind of going to go wherever. And I can like to jokingly say that I've solved the problem of ever having a bad hair day just because I shave it. So I don't have to worry about oh no, I blew the wrong way. Nope, not today. That's not happening.
There you go. Yeah, I took a picture this morning. I had curled my hair just for the fun of it, and I was messing with just the tiny little strands that seemed to be going everywhere. Mm-hmm. I was all right, it's gonna be okay. Let's take it down a notch. It's okay. I don't need to fix every little strand of hair.
Right. I just need to get these few here and there. I'm good. But it's that perfectionism that we have to get over, that people want to connect with someone real. And I think there's a shift taking place, especially because you start looking at the popularity of Snapchat, Facebook Live, mm-hmm. Periscope, where people are seeing the raw and authentic. There's not that perfect shot, everything's all lined up, oh look, here you are. You're just the way you are. That's it. There's nothing special. I can't edit out something there. No, if it's there in the background, it's there.
Exactly. And you can position yourself so that there's you have an ideal shot, but it's not ever going to be perfect. And I think that's what people connect with is real people. Yeah, you're going to see, the best angle in my room is the window is behind me, and I know it's not ideal lighting, but that's the best angle. Right. I can't, there's nothing else I can do.
Right, exactly. You can control certain things, but then you just have to go with it and not get worried about perfectionism every single time, because it's going to drive you nuts. I think a great example in terms of always being willing to tweak the logo a little bit, it's look at Google, of how many times they really do change their logo where it's some minute change. Really? Okay, but to the average person they would never notice. Or how many of the different doodles they come up with. It's every couple of days, here's another one for something. And yep. But it's always being reinventive of how can you keep yourself relevant in front of people. And I think that's where the small business owner needs the most help at. So when it comes to selecting images to put out there, realistically, how often should someone be using a visual component on social media to keep themselves relevant?
Every post. Like, I know that sounds probably like, oh my god, that's a lot. Like, I have to come up with an image for every post. But the reality is social media is so image driven now. I mean, I look back, like, several years ago when I started using Facebook, I look back at like the memories posts that come up, and none of them have images because people just did the little like blurbs about what was up, but that's not the case anymore. People are using images and videos now, especially videos. It's getting more and more common. And then Instagram, I mean, you have the rise of Instagram, and it's like, it's all images. It's so image driven. You have to have some kind of a visual component to your images to help you stand out. That being said, it gives you an opportunity to have some fun with it. It doesn't have to be like, oh my god, I have to do an image with every post. Like, oh my god, it's so overwhelming. Like, no, why do I have to do this? No, you can have fun with it. It gives you an opportunity to have fun and experiment and get to show different sides of you.
Right. Oh, definitely. You're able to be more authentic with an image. You think about just the regular status update. Sure, you could be really descriptive, but if you said the same thing in a video, how much more compelling it is.
Oh, absolutely. And some people, it's interesting because, like, some people are more comfortable with writing and some people are more comfortable with video. And I'm definitely one of those people, like, I'm really comfortable with writing, but I come across better on video because I'm a good writer. Like, I was a college writing tutor for 2 years. So I'm a really good writer, but I end up editing so much that it doesn't quite sound like me because it sounds like, the perfect coming across, like, post. It's not me. It's not exactly how I would say it. And so when I just, speak off the cuff on video, it's a lot more authentic. And I feel like that's probably the way it is for a lot of people, although some people don't have the over editing issue that I do when it comes to writing.
Right. Well, it's something that if you think about writing, we live in that world, especially if you're creating a business and you've paid attention in school, all those little fun things. You've been conditioned. You must make this right. Oh, this must be spelled perfectly. Oh, your sentence, it shouldn't have more than X number of words. All these different rules that come into play with your writing that, for the most part, in the spoken word, you don't use.
Oh, absolutely.
You think about it, of how people are conditioning themselves differently. The way you speak is going to be different the way that you write because you're trying to convey that emotion as part of the process versus so much of it can be lost when you're just writing and you're thinking of, well, I need to use this word because it's more impactful, where speaking it, you might not ever use it.
Exactly.
Because someone might go, what does that mean? So
exactly.
It's the differences.
And it's one of those things that you especially figure out as you're learning a foreign language. I have a degree in French, which is why this is what I think of as the example. You think about these things and it's like, okay, I know like really good book French, and then you go to Paris. I lived in Paris for 9 months. You go to Paris and it's like, oh, people don't talk like that. You need to learn how people actually speak. So you fit in and you don't like completely give yourself away as a tourist right away.
Right, exactly. It is so amazing when you look at that, of how people will communicate differently. And I think that's a missing component if you're looking at that marketing aspect. You have your traditional, here's your normal mindset of marketing with positioning yourself, but then there's more that conversational. How are you positioning yourself when you think, here's the image that you want to use, or if you're going to use a video, what's the language you should be using in this case to convey your message? Because it doesn't matter that if you spend hours trying to get the right lighting and like, this is the perfect setting for this, and the words you choose, people think, I'm just going to run in the other direction now, and they do something else. Yep. But that happens all the time.
Oh, absolutely. And it's one of those things, like, there's all the, like, traditional marketing, and there's the, like, oh, you want to come across as perfect, and as we've been talking about, it's like, perfect doesn't exist, and people are realizing that people want to connect with people. People buy from people. People don't buy from Instagram images that took 3 hours to put together. And so it's one of those things, it's like, how are people going to actually connect with you? Like, are they going to connect better if you just literally, like, dictate a post into your phone or whatever, and then hit send or hit post? Or are they going to connect with something that's, like, perfectly professionally written?
Right. Oh, totally. And that's just so vital. Now, of course, when you're looking at all of this, we're speaking so much about the online media. How does, say, with a brand convey that same message, the same emotion with your typical print advertising? Do they need to use different imagery, different colors because of how it's being delivered? Or can it be all the same stuff?
It really depends, I feel like, on the individual brand itself. It's what is your best representation? If you're doing different types of print, if you're doing different types of, like online, it's like, what is your best representation? What are your best colors? What are your best fonts? Is there anything that you feel like will best capture your ideal client's attention? Is there a way you can connect with them individually as opposed to like these other brands?
Right. Oh, totally. And it makes sense because you really want to have that right foot forward and know that.
Absolutely.
Also, at the same time, not everything looks the same when something's on paper versus being on a computer screen.
Oh, exactly. And there's definitely that component to it. Like, once something is printed, it's done. And so if you find an error in it, it's like, oh, well, then people are going to see that error. Whereas, on Facebook, you can go into a post and fix anything. And on main posts anymore, it doesn't even show that you edited it in the first place.
Right, exactly. And that's so critical, is keeping that best foot forward as much as possible because it's going to be impactful to that brand.
Oh, absolutely. Because that's how people are going to really connect with you. You want to make sure that you have your best foot forward, but it's also authentic, that you're really putting yourself out there, that you're fully showing up, you're fully being the impactful person that you are. And everybody is. Everybody has something that they can share and that they can impact people with.
Mm-hmm.
It's recognizing that and it's putting that out there.
Right. Oh, totally. So now with a brand, especially in today's world, and like you think about that small business owner, and they need to make some quick changes to a picture they took. What are some of the tools that they can utilize that's not going to be overwhelming, like a Photoshop, like oh yikes, that they can really use and be able to make those small changes themselves?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I really like to use for just tiny changes is PicMonkey. They actually do have some like photo editing capabilities. Like I love Canva and use Canva like all the time for creating social media post images especially, but Canva doesn't allow that photo editing capability, whereas PicMonkey, and that's what I did with my first images, I took them in my bedroom then with the selfie stick duct taped to the fan, and then I brought them into PicMonkey because I didn't want to fool with all the Photoshop capabilities. I was like, I just want to fix these, like I want to make my eyes brighter, I want to make my skin look a little bit more even, make my hair look a little nicer, like just those little kinds of things. I really like PicMonkey as a way to do that.
Oh, that's great. I've used it before. It's a simple program that pretty much anybody can use. Like it doesn't take advanced training. You don't have to watch like hours of videos on YouTube to figure out like, okay, so now I know how to crop an image. You don't have to worry about that.
Exactly. And with Photoshop, there is a total like wormhole you can get sucked down. Like there are tons and tons and tons of things you can learn, and I don't think anybody has full knowledge of Photoshop unless it's literally all they do or unless they're a developer.
Right. Exactly. There's limitations to certain programs out there because the average person is not necessarily going to go in there and want to make changes to someone's hair color or, okay, let's whiten this person's teeth, let's do this and that. It's more like, oh, okay, I just want to crop this one little section out and put it into this, and that's about it.
Exactly.
Or
exactly, it's those little
they
things.
Need to resize it.
Exactly,
right.
it's yeah.
That's where it's powerful when you can just have those simple changes and you're not overwhelmed. So it also helps this way then in terms of focusing when you're working with a designer, you're not having to call up and say, can you resize this image? Because I'm sure you don't exactly want to get calls like that.
No, I don't. Because that's something where, again, it's like, yeah, you can go into like PicMonkey or something and have that done. I mean, obviously, if there's some other kind of an edit, like, oh, I'd also like this little thing to be changed or whatever, then, I mean, obviously, I'm happy to do it. And if it's something where it's like, I'm having a really hard time getting this right, like, I actually had a client hire me, in addition to creating a banner for her business page, she also hired me to fix something that she'd done in Canva because it wasn't showing up right. It was like blurry or something. And it's like, yeah, that kind of stuff I'm absolutely happy to do. If something isn't going right, then I'm absolutely happy to troubleshoot.
Right. Oh, definitely. It makes total sense that way. Because sometimes people don't know what to use or how to fix something that's really small. And it just makes sense. But for the simple stuff, once you know how to do it, you don't really have to call somebody and say, I need this done, like resizing an image. That's pretty simple to do once someone shows you how to do it.
Oh, absolutely. And it's something that where you don't have to hire a designer, who could be charging $25, $50, $100 more an hour to be doing this kind of small stuff for you when you could easily just learn it on your own.
Right, exactly. Like, why pay someone, say, $50 an hour for them to go in there and resize 5 images when that's really going to take you about 5 minutes?
Yeah, exactly.
And so that stuff will make a big impact to someone's business. Now, obviously, one of those, we look at this stuff here in terms of imagery. It's, that it's something that's very critical and valuable for a brand to have out there. For someone who's just getting started, how many images should they really have to represent their business?
I recommend having at least probably 3 or 4 somewhat professional looking shots. And again, those can be things you take yourself with an iPhone camera. Those can be something that your friend or husband or wife or kid I've even heard of. Those can be pictures that those kinds of people take. It doesn't have to be the super expensive professional shots. Mm-hmm. And then I also recommend creating some social media post images, and one of my favorite things to do is just to make a template. You just have a background and sometimes a border. I usually like to do a border. Some people aren't crazy on borders. I like a border. And some kind of a logo or your website at the bottom or something like that. And then it's just plug and play. Then you just drop in your text and you're ready to go.
Right. And that's a great way to do it. It doesn't take very long to recreate something. You always have it and you're able to run with it.
Oh, it takes probably 5 to 10 minutes to create a template like that, and then maybe 5 minutes tops to make each image. And so then you're saving yourself so much time instead of having to make the image from scratch all over again.
And that's powerful because there's no reason to recreate an image if you're really going to use the same thing over and over again.
Exactly.
That's awesome. So now, what is one thing that you would recommend for people to do to have better images on social media?
One thing that I really recommend is I really like using Canva. And the tricky thing about using Canva is that sometimes if you go overboard on the templates, it is obvious that your images came from Canva. And then it's oh, okay. You kind of start to lose a little bit of credibility with people. And so what I really like to do, I really like to use these. You can go on to Creative Market, or you can Google. There's these elements, design elements you can use. I have these gold ones that are background kinds of oh my god, what's labels, those kinds of things, little hearts or ribbons or those kinds of things that you can put behind text or you can have just as decoration. I mean, there's all kinds of different things. I have gold glitter ones because those are the ones I like. But there's a variety. There's flowers, there's stars, there's, all kinds of different things you can think of, and you don't have to buy them either. You can Google free ones. I always make sure that I include this free for commercial use because you don't want to be stepping on anybody's toes legally.
Right. That's extremely important, making sure, just with any image that someone uses, is that they have the rights to use it. Because the last thing you want to have happen is you get a little letter from an attorney telling you to stop using an image. Exactly.
And you hate to see that happen. So I always like to include that little disclaimer. But yeah, I really like to include those little elements because that's a really easy way to spice up an image and make it look so much more professionally done. And the ones on Creative Market are I don't know, $2, $6. I mean, they're cheap, and I'm not an affiliate of them either, so I'm not trying to promote them. This is just from my own experience. They're really cheap and easy to use. And the free ones are great too. Either way, they're just a really easy way to add variety to an image. That's what I recommend.
Oh, excellent. And that's really powerful. So now, as we wrap up the discussion today, where can people be able to learn more about you and ultimately get in touch with you to have you design some graphics for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is laurenashelyerickson.com. It's my full name. I'm guessing or hoping that my full name will be somewhere on the page. So okay. Because it's kind of a long name to spell out. Unfortunately, laurenerickson.com was taken. So my website is laurenashelyerickson.com. And I have a variety of resources, and there's different things up there that you can contact me and get in touch with me to do your graphics.
Oh, excellent. Well, that's what people want at the end of the day. So I want to thank you, Lauren, for coming onto the Big Movement podcast today and sharing your wisdom about graphic design and ultimately how people can use images to grow their brand.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This was such a fun conversation.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks for listening to the Big Movement Podcast today. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Now that you've surely been inspired to take your entrepreneurial career and business to the next level, you can stop by the website and get more. And if you're ready to boost your business brand, be sure to grab your free report, 7 Easy Steps to Build Your Brand Today.